Welcome to the Rumbidzai show. Salibonani, Makadini, hello, wherever you are in the world and wherever you're tuning from. I don't know what time it is, if it's morning or afternoon, but hello and welcome. Today we are so privileged to have with us a young man who is a nurse, who is a father, and his name is James Matsika. Welcome, James.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for coming to share with us some nuggets that you have from a journey. Today we're talking about life is a journey, but you've come through from a relationship breakdown, and we want to just talk today about the road to recovery after a relationship breakdown. So that's what we're chatting about today. So James, how long were you married for?
I was married for 15 years.
15 years,
Yes.
Wow, that's great. And how many children do you have?
Two, a boy and a girl.
Okay, all right. So today we're not going to talk much about how you got to separate or the divorce, but there's part of your story which I think is really, really interesting, because you shared about how someone, how did you get the confirmation that it was time for you to move away and to leave your marriage?
I can't say anybody gave me any confirmation. It just, I just felt it was time
Okay.
to move on.
All right. Okay.
And it took a while to accept that.
Okay.
But when the time comes, it comes. You just know it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it happens. I think it's important for us to recognize that, isn't it? That it's good to be married until death do us part. But sometimes we grow apart, sometimes stuff happens, and it's healthier for us to separate. But what I want you perhaps to walk us through is that journey to recovery. How did you feel as an individual after the breakup of your marriage?
I think initially it was difficult. Obviously, it's a loss, and you're starting a new relationship with yourself.
Okay.
First. And you're moving on to rediscover yourself, and you lose a support structure, because when you're married you share friends, you share family, you share, so initially you lose all that. So having to restart again, it's a difficult journey.
You said it's a loss, isn't it?
It's a loss.
Yes. And even church, I think you share so much, isn't it?
Yes.
When you become so entangled.
Yes.
And so when you separate from that entanglement, you are the one who said you felt that you were isolated. You lost a lot.
Yes.
Did you stay with the kids? Did you stay in the home? What actually happened?
I left the home.
You left the home.
I left the home with my ex.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the children
And the
as
children.
well. Okay.
Yeah.
And you've so what about what I want us to perhaps focus on is your emotional well-being, because there's so many different things. There's the emotions, there's the legal part of recovery, there's financial part of recovery, there's relationships with others, relationship with children, with in-laws, navigating all that, new relationships. So there's so much that comes from that. But perhaps if we just start with your emotional well-being, what steps did you take to actually recover from that, from the loss that you experienced?
I think the first step I took was to accept that I needed help. I couldn't do it by myself, because initially I was telling myself that I can handle it, because I've come from the difficult part of being in the relationship that wasn't rocky and wasn't working for a while. So accepting that I needed help was the first step.
Okay.
And finding the help, the right kind of help, was the second step.
Yeah.
Which for me worked out good, because I was introduced to Renewal Church by my cousin.
Me. So you went to Renewal Christian Center.
Yeah, Christian Center.
Yeah.
And they run a divorce and separation course.
Yeah.
So it's run by couples who were been through marriage and been divorced. Some of them have been divorced several times. So, and you get people from different walks of life, Christians, non-Christians, different racial backgrounds and cultural backgrounds, and just tell your story.
Okay.
and they just facilitate like different topics.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the two steps that you've said is one, the recognition that you need help and you can't do it by yourself.
Yes.
And I think that's a very key step. That's a big stumbling block because sometimes we think we can do it all by ourselves, but it was that recognition. And then secondly, getting the right kind of help. And you referred to the recovery from divorce and separation course that you attended, isn't it?
Yes.
Which was really helpful.
Yes, it was.
And what would you say were some of your takeaways there in terms of your own like well-being or the stage that you were in? I think there's certain stages in the recovery road. Could you tell us a little bit more about those?
I think initially, what on the first day of the course, they have like a diagram which shows like different areas of recovery, where someone is like dealing with grief and loss, and someone's recovering and they're starting new relationships. They're climbing through to start a new life. So they ask you where exactly you think you are, and then they describe what it is like to be in that at every stage. And for me, I thought I was climbing out of like, the issues I was with, but actually after discussing with other people, I realized I was far back.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I was dealing with struggling with the acceptance.
Okay.
That you know the loss is there and this is who I am.
Yeah. So you said the acceptance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because being divorced or being separated and accepting that that's the situation you're in is difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
So most people, when you don't get to accept that's where you are and embrace it with whatever challenges come with it, it becomes difficult to move on. That's why people end up committing suicide or become promiscuous or use drugs because they're trying to bury it.
Yes.
Instead of embracing the situation and finding help and finding ways of like accepting yourself.
Wow. So acceptance, that's really key in terms of even as a Christian, I think there's a sense that comes, I'm a Christian, you're a Christian, and you know, we're taught that marriage is for life, and the church doesn't really favor divorce. And so how did you balance that, your faith as a Christian, and then reaching this stage to understand that, you know what, it's over, and accepting it?
I think that's where I realized that I needed help, because what the church, I'm not saying the church is wrong, but what the church advocates that people stay together, regardless of what's happening. And the more you stay in that situation, the more you become good at pretending.
Yes.
And the more you pretend, the more you resent each other.
Yeah.
So accepting that that's what it is, and regardless of what people at church are going to say, or other people, was hard. Yeah. Because that was my support structure. And those are the people I opened my life to. Yeah. And those are the same people who will be judging you harshly. Yes. Because you've gone against what they were teaching you to do. Yeah, yeah. So that was the hard part, dealing with that. And you're dealing with a lot of isolation. Yeah. And you're dealing with a lot of self-doubt. And so that's when, at that point, that's when I needed that. I knew I needed help. I couldn't do it by myself. Yeah. So there's a lot of things there, isn't it? Yeah. There's the church judging harshly. And it's church folk, it's because of what we are taught. I think in the church, the message is always restorative. And that's good. It's a good message. But sometimes things don't work. And then there's the issue of self-doubt and condemnation. There's so many emotions, isn't it, that you would go through. Sure. And I like what you said, that you were self-aware to actually recognize that I'm drowning. Because other people, like you said, could resort to drugs, promiscuity, suicide even at that stage where there's a lot of self-doubt. So do you think being a mental health professional helped you to become self-aware? Is it something, what helped you to become so in tune with your own emotional well-being? Yeah, I think working in mental health helped a lot because you become aware of the signs and symptoms of the stress or what a person goes through when they're going down emotionally. Okay. Yeah. So I was aware of that in me. Okay, so you were self-diagnosing. Yeah, that's good. And it's good that you were able to get help from a Christian setting as well. Because as a Christian, I think it's good to be able to reconcile your faith with with a relationship breakdown as well. And not to receive judgment, but to receive support.
So that course is really, really good. I always recommend it because it's helpful in that situation. And then what about after that? You said you acceptance. So what comes after acceptance?
So after acceptance, you deal with your emotions.
Okay.
Because you've got a rainbow, like emotions going on, and you've got volcanoes going on. Then you calm at one point, you're good at one point, and then just some triggers of what you're missing out with the kids, or certain places you used to do, or meet as friends and stuff like that. So you're dealing with emotions a lot, and you spend a lot of time by yourself. Yeah. And so you're dealing with emotions and the isolation and all that. So you have to deal with emotions, how to manage your own emotions.
Okay.
Yeah. And you have to challenge yourself to say, this is what I'm going through, and I need to deal with this, because it's easier to want to manage other people's emotions, or to control other people, or to control your ex or the kids' emotions towards you.
Yeah.
But if you don't manage your own emotions, you can't manage other people or your relationship with other people.
Okay. So you only have control for yourself, and you can't control your ex, you can't control the kids, you can't control things that you can't control, but you can manage your own emotions. That's really profound. So what type of emotions would you said it's like a volcano and a rainbow. So maybe what type of emotions would you typically you go through?
I think a sense of loss.
A sense of loss, okay.
Because you're losing a home that you have known to be normal. You're losing everything that you have known to be normal for a long time.
Yeah.
And you're losing your identity, basically.
Yes.
Because for me, my kids were my identity.
Okay.
So losing that was hard. And you also being judged, and you get a lot of self-condemnation.
Yeah.
Because you blame yourself for staying for too long, for things to get that bad in the relationship.
Yeah.
And you're blaming yourself for sort of like ending it, or the part you played in it, for things to get to that level, and how it affects other people, and all that stuff. It's just going on in your
mind. So emotions are guilt, condemnation, anger at yourself,
pain, resentment, all everything. One day you're happy, then just someone triggers you, or you watch something on TV that reminds you something used to do with you.
Wow. And how did you learn to manage that? What things would you do that are helpful, just on a practical tip for somebody who's in that stage now? What type of things did you learn to manage your emotions?
I think you have to do the things that you love. For me, I like sports. I like jogging. So that helped a lot for me.
So jogging.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so you have to do the things that you love for you. And also like meeting up with people who are supportive. I call those people my ladder holders.
You?
Ladder holders.
Ladder holders.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Because when you're climbing up a ladder, you need to be out to people you can trust. That they hold the ladder, regardless how shaky it is. So having those people help me to deal with my emotions and avoiding isolation. Because isolation is the worst thing you can do. Because when you're isolated, there's no limit to what you can imagine, or what you can make yourself think that it's the right thing to do when it's the wrong thing.
Yeah. Wow.
So isolation is something I had to learn to deal with.
And how did you deal with the isolation?
With isolation, a friend of mine was very supportive.
Yeah.
I used to go to the same church with him. So we started meeting every Wednesday after he does the school run.
Okay.
At Sainsbury's for breakfast.
Okay.
Like just talking about issues, like dealing with men and relationships.
Okay.
Then he invited his friend. Then the friend came and said, "Oh, this was good." So he invited his own friend. So every Wednesday, different men from like different racial backgrounds and someone.
So it's actually grown.
So it's grown now.
That's
so every
really
Wednesday,
good.
whoever is free.
Everyone just comes Wednesday breakfast.
Breakfast.
Sainsbury's, guys. So that's really good. If anyone wants to go join you guys.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's powerful. You said isolation, and so to do that, you started meeting up with friends, and then it grew.
Yes.
So even in your own place where you were, there became a ripple effect of support for other men as well.
Sure.
And then there's also ladder holders, so key people who provide stability and help you. That's really powerful. And there was a third thing that you said.
If doing something you love.
Doing something you love, so you're doing jogging.
Yeah.
That's great. That's good. And exercise is always good. Going out and getting fresh air. You know, those practical things are things which are so helpful in getting out of that place of depression, and which you can easily spiral into, isn't it? That's amazing. That's so good. And I really am so impressed with the work that you're doing, like just meeting up with other guys, because it's life-saving. You know, you could be you're saving another brother who had no one to speak to, or no one at all, just to just bounce things through and for what they're going through. So that's really powerful. And so after emotions, we're going to come back and we're going to go on a break, just have an advert and have a break, and then we'll be back. Welcome back. And we're just talking to James about recovery from divorce and separation. And just before we went on the break, you mentioned something which I wanted you just to explore a bit more. Okay. You mentioned about how you meet with men on a Wednesday, and that's grown to lots of men. What type of issues do men go through? You know, what type of issues do they talk about? I would love to come and listen, but I know women are not allowed.
Yeah, I think men go through a lot, and culturally, it's not common for men to talk about abuse. Especially abuse they suffer, because a lot of men, when they come in, you'll be surprised that people look good and who've got good jobs and they've made it well in life, but they're going through a lot of emotions because of the way their relationships are going broken down and how they're treated at home. And
is it true? This is a myth that I hear.
Yes.
You know, that professional women, because women, some of them are professionals, my nurses, my social workers and things like that, they're causing havoc in the homes to men. Have you heard about this at all from men or anything like that?
I think most of the issues center around like the financial.
Okay.
And because it's a good thing that the women are independent and that they can able to provide for the families for themselves just as much or even more than what men do. But I think it's having the wisdom and the right balance to manage that and to manage the relationship without it becoming abusive.
Okay.
Yeah, because a lot of men they complain or they suffer a lot because of the woman being independent enough to move on without them.
Okay.
So they're subjected to like some complain about beatings. Some being kicked out of the house, or other women having affairs, knowing that the men can't go anywhere.
Wow, really? But so when they beating them, kicking them out of the house, so emotional abuse, and even just having affairs, knowing that the man, they're not going to be able to do anything about it. So those are the type of things they talk about.
Yeah, so emotions are the type of thing they talk about. And naturally, it's hard for men to talk about emotions. And it's hard for a man to realize that they're being abused and to accept it. Because most people stay in it because they're hoping that the person will change for the better. So the more they do, they bend backwards.
The worse it gets.
Yeah, the more they bend backwards, the worse it gets. And they start probably resenting themselves, and there's a sense of loss after the relationship breaks down.
Yeah.
Because it's something you've cherished for a long time, which has died. So you go through a period of mourning and losing yourself, and also not accepting that you're a victim.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of like psychological stuff going on, emotional stuff going on, and besides the physical.
So is that something that you experienced as well?
Yeah, there was some emotional part, and there's some issues, a lot of issues going on.
Yeah.
But I think the hardest part is to accept that you are a victim of that.
Yeah.
Because you don't want people to see. And usually when you're going
I suppose as a man, being seen as a victim is sort of seen as weak. I think traditionally as well.
Yeah.
And for men to access help, it takes a lot for a man to actually accept that, because men are supposed to be macho. I know, I've heard people saying, and people will say, how can you be beaten by a woman? You're weak. And it's like perpetuating that cycle of violence, isn't it? But some men will walk away, but still they'll suffer the effects of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the effects of that don't end when you leave.
Mm-hmm.
Because people talk about moving on.
Yeah.
But moving on is also a physical separation.
Mm-hmm.
The emotional side, your mind is still stuck to that because that's what you used to know for a long time as your normal. So separation is not a matter of just moving on from the person.
Yeah.
It's moving on emotionally with yourself. Because you can leave your mind behind. So you haven't moved on. Because whatever the person does or whatever you hear that they're doing,
it still plays in your mind.
It still plays in your mind. It's going to affect you.
Yeah.
So moving on is it's a mental and a spiritual thing.
Okay.
It's not a physical thing.
Yeah. So you move out, or you're kicked out, or whatever. There's the physical separation,
Yes.
and then following on from that is the mental
Yes.
and spiritual
Yes.
separation,
Yeah.
which is what takes time,
What
isn't
takes
it?
time,
Which
yeah.
takes time. And for you, I mean, we talked about acceptance. We talked about hope, building up hope. You know, what stage would you now say after doing this course? What would you say you are at now?
I think now I'm at a stage where I can say I've moved on.
Okay.
Because with all this, after doing all this, the biggest hurdle for most people is forgiveness.
Yes, forgiveness. Okay.
And forgiveness is not about the other person. You have to forgive you
Yeah.
for your failures.
Yeah.
You have to accept your contribution to where things ended up,
Yeah.
whether you were the victim or not.
Yeah. So it takes two people to make a marriage work, and it takes
Yes.
two people for a marriage to break down as well, isn't
Yes.
it? So you've said something really key, and I don't want people to miss this. You said forgiveness is not about forgiving the other person, but about forgiving yourself for your failures, for your contribution to the marriage breaking down. So that's really key. How did you manage to do that?
I think you have to accept that things didn't work, and for things not to work, you should have played a part, and to acknowledge that. I think that's where the course comes in. Because when I went for the course, there were people, other women, who were in similar situations or with similar complaints about their exes, as my ex said about me.
Yeah.
And some of the women had similar characteristics which I thought were similar to my ex.
Yeah.
So it forces you to look at you as a person,
rather than looking at the other
looking
person.
at that person, what they did to you or what you think they did to you. So you have to focus on you, because if you're not honest with your pain, what you went through, you never be honest with your recovery, and you never get to a point where you can move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the part of forgiveness, forgiving yourself.
Yeah.
And then the second part is forgiving other people. And your exes and anybody else who you think could have contributed to that.
Because there's family, there's
Yes.
friends,
Yes.
there's all that, isn't
Yeah.
it? I love what you've said about that, forgiving yourself. And then the second part, once you've been able to forgive yourself, is forgiving your spouse. And you said something as well, which is so key, that about what they did and what you think they did. Because a lot of times to know fungira, and it's our perception of things, to know ona as if, yet we might have got it wrong, or we might not have understood what they were doing and felt it was a different way. So it's very good in that respect of helping people to move on. So the forgiveness is key. And then after the forgiveness, you are then able to move on to the next level, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So another thing that's important is communication.
Okay.
So you have to learn to communicate, ways of communicating. Because for things to break down in a relationship, communication is key.
Yeah.
So you have to learn about what kind of communication led to things breaking down in the relationship, and build better communication with that person, if they're willing to.
Yes.
Build better communication with your kids.
Yeah.
And look at other people's perspective when it comes to communication, because people say things sometimes because the way they're looking at whatever thing you're talking about. So you have to learn to put all that in context and look beyond the person you're talking to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they might be saying something or communicating something in a way, but there's a reason why
they're saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's learning to communicate.
Yes.
And I think most marriages and relationships, they break down because of communication. I think it's so key. And it's learning how to we've been married for 22 years, and I think we only did some of the courses with some of the facilitators on this program on communication after maybe 18 years of marriage or something. And it's like we just learned a whole new, we just thought, oh my gosh, we've been doing it wrong all along. We've just been bashing at each other thinking we're communicating, yet we're not. So it's now learning, even after breakup, how to communicate effectively to move on. That's a lot of, that's so many nuggets that you've told us in this, which is so helpful. And I hope that there's another course coming up so that other people can go on it. And I would just like you perhaps just to tell our viewers, anyone, any woman, any man, anyone who's going through divorce, who's still in that place of despair, of loss, of isolation, what hope and encouragement could you give them from your experience?
I think the best thing is to accept that's the situation where you are, and the next thing is to find help. And finding help is not like talking to everybody about your situation or acting out. I think the mistake most people do is act out that whatever happened didn't bother me, and that I'm strong and I can take it. It's why Christians have that notion that they can't show their weakness because it shows that they don't have faith. So it's good to show that you've got faith, but it's also good to know where you can find help. And be open with whoever you meet who can help you. And mostly men, I think it's good for men to talk about these things. Because men bury their emotions and they come out in ways that are destructive to the ex and the kids and everybody else around.
Yeah, wonderful. So get help, get the right help. I think that's a running theme all the time, that there is help available. But it's getting the right help, investing in it, because you invested time into this program, you invested sometimes money. I don't know if there was a cost to it, but it's investing your time, your resources into getting well and getting better so that you're able to move on. And yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. And after all this course and learning, is there any chance of going back or going forward? I won't ask you to answer that. But sometimes, when you do these recovery programs, you just think, okay, maybe let me go back to Egypt or move forward into the land of milk and honey. So that's great. Thank you so much, James.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And if any men want to reach out to you or to come to your Wednesday meetings, we can post the details in the comments section so that anyone who wants to meet up with you can. That's great. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Faith.
Thank you so much for watching our program today. Thank you to James for talking about his road to recovery. During this time that we are in lockdown, we're still in lockdown. The slogan has changed from stay at home to stay alert. And we are staying alert. And we are still staying at home as much as we can. But in this time that we've been given, it's a time for us to be reflective about our lives, reflective about areas where we may have done things wrong, reflective about our relationships. But what's important is for us to find the time to heal, to find the time to heal from the inside. And then when we come out of this lockdown, we'll see that there'll be changes in our lives. I love what James talked about. He talked about the cycle of grief in relationships and talked about how when a relationship ends, you have to go through a grief cycle. And it's similar to how we've experienced so much death. When a relationship ends, it's like a part of you dies, hopes, aspirations, your person that you've been living with for so many years has gone away and they're just not there anymore. So it's similar to death. But in that, I think we often neglect the healing process in that relationship. And we can, in that type of situation. But it's equally important to go through the process, to grieve, to forgive, and then to be able to move on. I hope that hearing the story from James has really helped someone out there. And we're going to have some webinars on recovery
from broken relationships, and hopefully have some more people come on and share their experiences, so that in sharing experiences, we can all find the healing and the restoration that we all deserve to enable us to move on in our lives in a healthy way. Thank you for watching.